Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going through the overall gameplay of the new and revamped Shadow Priest. Now, first things first, this is the WoW Legion Alpha. Numbers don't really matter. This is not about raiding, this is about gameplay and whether it's fun. The goal is to give you an overall idea of how this class is actually going to play and basically drill down to the core. So what I'm going to do in this video is cover the very core main abilities, then I'll cover all of the abilities, then I'll cover the talents, then I'll cover the artifact, weapon, traits, and abilities, and then we'll have a more complete look at how it plays overall. So the first thing to understand is the insanity mechanic. It's your new resource, and you gain insanity by using a number of generator abilities. Once you hit 100 insanity, you enter void form, which will cause you to lose insanity very quick, in an increasingly fast pace, but you also get some slight modifications. So while you're in void form, I'll just bring void form up here, you will gain 1% haste every 1 second, and that haste persists after void form ends. You get the cooldown of Mind Blast reduced by 3 seconds, and you're able to use an ability called Void Blast. This does an extremely high amount of damage, and also increases the duration of your primary dots. That's essentially how this plays, and the mastery will just increase the damage of your Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Void Bolt by a certain percentage. So let's just run in and see what it's like. I'm just going to target this level 60 dummy here, so you're going to see some pretty insane numbers. Unfortunately, there are no level 100 training dummies, because the level 100 ones from WoD have been upgraded to be the power of something that's actually from Legion at level 110. So, first of all, you start off by putting on your dots, as you imagine. Then you use Mind Blast on cooldown. And your filler ability is Mind Flay. So Mind Flay will just do a dot, as you know, it'll do damage as it channels, and then will slow the target. Vampiric Touch is a dot, which does pretty strong damage, but will heal you with every tick. The main thing about Shadow Word Pain is that it's going to generate insanity over time, so you'd always want to multi-dot with that. Anyway, let's get back on target, so I'll apply these two. I'll then Mind Blast, and we'll use Mind Flay as our filler. You can see my insanity is increasing over time. We are about to hit 100, so I'm going to do a Mind Blast here, and this will activate Void Bolt. Now, as you can see, we're rapidly losing insanity. So now I'm just doing constant Mind Blasts and Void Bolts to keep my insanity bar going up and trying to sort of counter it going down. So the more you do while you're insane, the longer you will stay insane in Void form. And one of the big skill differentiators here is going to be how long you're able to keep yourself in Void form, because when you're in Void form, A, you do more damage, but B, you get access to Void Bolt, which does an insane amount of damage per global cooldown, making it extremely effective. And that's pretty much how it plays. There is one cycle of DPS. Now, if you look at me do a Mind Flay here, you can see I'm benefiting from this increased haste. What does that increased haste mean? Well, my things are going to tick more, my casting is going to be faster, and you can see, boom, I'm actually back in Void form again, extremely quickly. So this is a very fast-paced spec, actually, because all that haste really does add up quite a bit. So you can see now, I've got crazy haste, and we're able to stay in Void form for a very long time and do a lot of damage. My gameplay video for this, that is based on the artifact weapon, is going to come out tomorrow. But you'll see in that just how much damage and how quickly you can kill mobs when you're in Void form. Now that that's done, let's just go through some of the abilities. Much of this is just the standard stuff, so Dispel Magic, Dispersion, which is your sort of oh shit thing, Dominate Mind, which is your MC, Fade, which will reduce damage taken and remove your threat, Mass Dispel, which will Mass Dispel, Mind Flay, which will do a dot and slow, Mind Blast is, well, we've already covered that. Mind Seer is an AoE, so cause an explosion of shadow magic around the target, dealing damage to all targets within 10 yards of your current target. Here's Mind Vision. This will let you see through a target's eyes. This is the ability which will teleport you back to your class order hall. Power Infusion is a talent. Power Word Shield is pretty much similar to what it is. It lasts for 15 seconds. It gives you a shield. It's pretty damn good, and it's actually augmented by a talent, which means that when you cast it, you will run a little bit faster, which is quite nice. Psychic Horror will stun for 4 seconds, Psychic Scream will cause enemies to flee in fear, Shackle Undead will shackle Undead. Shadow Mend is your new heal, so this will heal you for 30,000 health, but then will deal a 15,000 Well, it will then deal a dot for 3,000 every 1 second until you have taken a total of 15,000 damage from all sources. So basically, it heals you a lot pretty quickly, but after that, that will sort of ebb and flow away and you'll lose health. But overall, it is a net increase in health. Shadow Word Death is your execute. Shadow Word Pain is just one of your standard dots. What's nice about it is that it will generate you insanity. Shadow Fiend will summon a Shadow Fiend to fight for 12 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. Silence is your standard silence / interrupt thing. Vampiric Embrace, this is one of your cooldowns, so fills you with the Embrace of Shadow, causing you and your allies to be healed for 10% of any single target shadow damage that you deal for 15 seconds. Vampiric Touch is another dot, but for every tick, it is going to give you health. Void Bolt is your Void Form ability, so send a bolt of pure energy at the target, dealing very heavy damage, and also increasing the duration of your Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch by 3 seconds. And that's pretty much all of your active abilities at the minute, so let's go and delve into the talents. So the very first row we've got Twist of Fate. After damaging a target below 35% health, you deal 20% increased damage and 20% increased healing for 10 seconds. It's pretty good. We've also got Fortress of the Mind. Mind Flay and Mind Blast deal 10% more damage and generate 20% more insanity. So I've decided to go with that so I can stay in Void form for a bit longer. Next we've got Shadow Word Void. This will do pretty much the same as Mind Blast, but it generates 30 insanity instead of 20. So if you were to save these up for when you are in your Void form, this is more insanity per global cooldown at the same cast time, meaning you'll be able to stay in Void form for longer. Next we've got the level 30 tier, so Mania, you move 1% faster for every 5 insanity you have. Body and Soul, your power word shield, and Leap of Faith will increase the target's movement speed by 60% for 4 seconds. And then Masochism, when you Shadow Mend yourself, it does no damage. That makes Shadow Mend a very potent single target heal. In the 45 tier, we've got Mind Bomb, so this is just a Psychic Explosion, which will stun enemies in a duration. Not in a duration, in a area around the target. We've got Psychic Voice, which will reduce the cooldown of Psychic Scream by 30 seconds. And then Dominate Mind, which will allow you to control your own character while Dominate Mind is active. Next up, Void Lord. So when in Void form, your shadow damage bonus is 40%, and that bonus applies to your absorbs and healing. This makes Void form quite a bit more potent. We've got Reaper of Souls, bit of a nod to Diablo 3. Your Shadow Word Death is now castable on targets below 35% health, and it will always generate insanity even if it doesn't kill the target. Now that is very, very important. If you are in Void form, and you are below 35% health, then this is a very good way to get more insanity per global cooldown and stay in Void form for longer. Which is going to be doubly useful when you're at 35% health, because in some boss fights that might be when heroism or some key cooldowns are used. Next we've got Void Ray. So each time your Mind Flay deals damage, you gain 10% increased Mind Flay damage for 3 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. Basically, this is going to involve you weaving your Mind Flays so that you sort of are constantly keeping uptime of that buff. Next, at the level 75 tier, we've got San Lane, which will increase the damage of your Vampiric Touch by 20%, which is quite nice, and the healing of Vampiric Embrace by 20% as well. Auspicious Minds will cause your shadowy apparitions to do double the damage. Pretty nice, don't really have to think about that, just some free damage. And then Shadowy Insight will cause your Shadow Word Pain to have a 10% chance to increase or to reset the cooldown on your Mind Blast. In the level 90 tier, we've got some key cooldowns. So Power Infusion will give you a buff for 20 seconds that increases haste by 25% and insanity generation by 25%. However, that is 25% increased haste on top of you maybe having 30 or 40% increased haste from Void form. The amount of haste that you get as a Shadow Priest is completely mental. Mindbender actually replaces your Shadow Fiend and it gives you a Mindbender. The Mindbender will give you 5 insanity every time it attacks, so basically it's a better Shadow Fiend. And then we've got Shadow Crash. This hurls a bolt of slow-moving magic energy at a destination, shadow energy even, and it deals 8,000 and whatever damage to all targets within 8 yards, generating 15 insanity with a 30-second cooldown. Basically, it's just more kind of direct AoE utility. And finally, we've got the level 100 tier. So Legacy of the Void. Casting Mind Blast also increases the effect of your next Shadow Word by 50% for 30 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. So if you do 2 Mind Blasts, then you get 2 stacks of that, and your Shadow Word Pain will deal more damage. I actually tried this, testing it out with Shadow Word Void, and it didn't seem to work, so I'm not sure what's up there. Then we've got Mind Spike. This will replace Mind Flay. It blasts the target with 4,500 Shadow Frost damage and increases the damage done by your next Mind Blast within 15 seconds by 50%, stacking up to 5 times. This very much changes the flow of gameplay. You want to do 5 of these before you do a Mind Blast, because that will be 250% increased damage. A very powerful ability that I think will change some of your other talent choices and rotation a decent bit. And finally, Surrender to Madness. This thing's bloody mental. So, you surrender to the old god, sacrificing your soul for ultimate power. Basically, all of your insanity-generating abilities generate 300% more insanity until you exit Void form. And then you die. What does this mean? Well, it means that you are in Void form for a very long time and you do a lot of damage, but you eventually will die. I will definitely have to test this one out. Next, let's take a look at your artifact weapon. So, its passive effect is that Mind Flay has a chance to spawn a Void Tentacle that will channel a Mind Flay at the target for 10 seconds. So that's just some free damage. And then its ability is Void Torrent. You raise your dagger into the sky and absorb Void Energy. You then release a torrent of Void Energy at the target, dealing 53,000 shadow damage over 4 seconds. This can only be done in Void form. And while you are channeling this, you don't lose insanity. Let's go through the different artifact traits. So, from the shadows, we'll reduce the cooldown of Dispersion by 10 seconds per stack. Mental Fortitude will cause your overhealing from Vampiric Touch to give you an Absorb Shield up to 50k. That's actually quite powerful. It's just passive, your health pool is basically 50,000 higher. Thoughts of Insanity causes Shadow Mend to heal for 5% more, and you take 10% less damage from the backlash. So next we've got Void Corruption. Mind Seer causes targets with your Shadow Word Pain or Vampiric Touch effects to immediately take 20% of a tick worth of damage. So if you're in a multiple AoE situation, you've multi-dotted everything, and then you're doing your Mind Seer, that is going to mean that your Mind Seer is doing its damage plus 20% of Shadow Word Pain plus 20% of Vampiric Touch per tick. Very powerful for your AoE. So next we've got Power of the Old Gods. This replaces Shadow Fiend, and it causes you to summon a Faceless from the Void to aid you in battle for 12 seconds, and it's going to cause apparently devastating Void spells at your target. We probably need more detail as to what it actually casts. Looking around the rest of their tree, Sinister Thoughts causes each cast of Mind Blast to increase the damage of your next Shadow Word spell by 5%, stacking up to 5 times. That's got a bit of synergy with one of our talents, actually. So next, Tremble in Fear. When Psychic Horror is removed from the target, they are snared by 30% for 1 second. I think I actually missed To the Pain, so To the Pain will increase your Shadow Word Pain damage by 3% per stack. Next, we've got the major ability, which is Sphere of Insanity. When you enter Void form, you summon a sphere from the Void for 15 seconds. While this sphere is active, 20% of your direct damage dealt is additionally dealt to targets with your Shadow Word Pain on them. So basically, this is radiating damage out to your other targets that you've dotted, meaning insane AoE, and I suppose it's a bit like one of those mage level 100 talents from WoD. Next, Touch of Darkness. Your Vampiric Touch is increased by 3% damage per stack. Thrive in the Shadows. Dispersion heals you for 100% of your max health over its duration, so Dispersion is a lot more powerful there. We've also got Unleash the Shadows. Vampiric Touch crits have a 10% chance to proc Shadowy Apparitions. So that's even more Shadowy Apparitions, I assume. And finally, we've got Mind Shattering. Mind Blast damage is increased by 3%. This leads us on to our final major thing, which is Mass Hysteria. Each stack of Void form increases the damage of your Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric's Touch by 5%. I don't know if this means that it increases it such that a reapplication does more damage, or whether this is just a completely passive thing. Hard to tell with the way the DPS, snapshotting and all of that works, and whether this will snapshot or not. So overall, let's just put that together and do a full rotation, and we'll try to use some cooldowns and things like that. So first of all, let's just put our dots up. We'll then do a Mind Blast, a Shadow Fiend, Mind Flay. Continue Mind Flaying until, Mind Blasting and stuff until we actually get into our Insanity. It takes a little bit longer to get into Insanity the first time because you don't have the benefit of all that haste. Now we're insane, so we are going to proc our Power Infusion, And this should allow us to stay in void form for quite a bit longer. We're going to use my artifact weapon ability, which will summon that void sphere that you can see going on. And overall, we are certainly doing quite a bit of damage here. And because of that power infusion, we're staying in void form for quite a bit longer. It might have been better off if I activated that later on, though, because it wasn't really needed at the start. But you can definitely see I'm doing some pretty mental damage here. Looks like we're about to exit, yep. So I don't actually need to reapply any of my dots. They're all up nice and handily, and the amount of haste that I have here is really quite significant, meaning already I'm right back in void form and ready to go. It is certainly pretty cool how all of this stuff is playing out. I think this is a really fun spec, to the degree where I'm probably going to level up my Shadow Priest so that I can play this when it comes out. Probably not as a main, I'll probably keep a Hunter as a main, but I'm actually impressed at this revamp. I didn't play Shadow Priest before this now, so my frame of reference is not really ideal, if I'm honest, but from the perspective of someone who's just approaching this as a completely fresh, brand new spec, I've got to say I like it quite a bit. Now, with that said, I'd be remiss if I did this video without including Surrender to Madness, which is that crazy end talent. So, let's go and see what that does. So first of all, we will dot up our target, use Mind Blast, fill in with Void Ray, Void Flay, no, Mind Flay. Not doing well with words today. Okay, so we're nearly at 100 insanity. And there we go, we've hit that. So, we've just used Surrender to Madness. So I generate 300% more insanity with everything. This means I'll be able to stay for a pretty long time because this generates 100 insanity. So, in theory, I could almost Mind Blast indefinitely. The only thing is, if I start to lose, if I lose in like 100 insanity in less time that it takes for a GCD and a cast of Mind Blast, then that's when I'm going to leave void form. This also means that eventually you'll have a very low threshold for failure. And I suppose you'll get to the point where you actually won't be able to cast Void Bolt because Void Bolt doesn't generate insanity? I don't think so. Certainly interesting. I'm just going to do a cheeky little Shadow Word Pain there. Oh, we nearly fell out of it. This is kind of stressful. I can definitely see this. Okay, so here's an example. If you have a movement heavy fight, casting this is very dangerous. Very dangerous indeed. I'm actually at the stage where if I cast a Void Bolt, it almost means it pretty much means Void Bolt will kill me. It might kill me here. Oh, okay, that was very close. I was so near to death. But I am, if you look here, I'm about to lose 100 insanity every second. But Mind Blast has a 0.7 of a second cooldown. I imagine that because of the GCD at this stage, if I was to cast anything other than Mind Blast, I would die. This is kind of crazy. So I'm now capped out at 100. I'm losing 100. Oh no. So the positive effects cap out at 100, but the insanity loss keeps on continuing. Oh wait, no, that's insanity loss every 2 seconds. So I suppose this is extremely useful if you're in a situation where there's a boss where there's a massive burn phase or a crazy execute phase or something. I suppose this would be useful for then. But if this is like a 10-minute long fight, obviously you're going to have problems. Plus, if you're in a fight where there's a lot of movement, you're going to have serious issues with this. So this is very much situational, but I'd imagine that the situations where it can be used, it's going to be extremely useful. We're at the stage where I don't think I can keep this going any longer. And of course, this is doing insane damage because I am hitting a level 60 target. I'm losing 162 every second. Holy shit. Once I lose, let's see, I'm very much about to die. Like, it is super close. My finger is actually getting a little bit sore having to completely spam this, so the sooner I die, the better, if I'm honest. At least if I'm dead, I don't have a sore finger. Mad damage, though. I wonder how they're going to balance this out. I mean, I suppose, like, in PvP or something, you would just keep the target disoriented and then they're dead. Essentially, because they won't be able to keep the insanity going. And that's the end of me. Did a lot of damage, though. A very interesting spec. The gameplay has my interest peaked, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this is like as the alpha progresses. That's it from me, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.